So in 2010, I got out of a long-term relationship, and there comes a point when you get out of a long-term relationship, like usually several months after, where you decide it's time for me to start dating again. And for most people, this is a conscious decision, but for me, it came after a series of very poor decisions, most of which, it ended up culminating in me waking up one morning after a staff party with a really bad hangover, and the online editor of the paper I was working at. And at that point, it's like, I guess I can start dating again, but it's less of like, maybe my heart's ready, and it's more of like, you'll do. So for the next 3 months, we embark on one of those sort of like non-relationship relationships, where like really every question about it is sort of answered with air quotes and a shrug. Where parents or friends will come and be like, how is so-and-so? And you'll be like, we're like seeing each other, and I guess, but he kind of, I don't know, it's not really anything. He wanted to do anal, and it's just sort of, But we did this for a while, and it was fine for me because, again, I just got out of a long-term relationship, and I wasn't really ready yet for feelings, but I was ready to like feel things. And so we did this until about March of 2011, and at that point I sort of sat down with him. We were out one night at a bar, and he looks at me and he's like, sorry I haven't gotten contacting with you for a bit. I just got off a really big drug bender. And I was like, what are we doing? And he goes, oh, I'm still in love with my ex. And I'm just like, smoke bomb, and like just out. Like, we're done. Because that's sort of, like several red flags and a fire alarm and possibly like the cops. So at that stage, I decided, why not try online dating? Because that is what you do in the 2010s. And I will say this, if you do storytelling or any sort of stand-up comedy, online dating is a gold mine. It is amazing. I know you don't have a lot of notes, but I am going to read part of an email. It's only 3 lines. It is, in fact, amazing. I did get this once. To give you the quality of people I was attracting, this was probably my favorite email I ever got. It's 3 lines. I will read it in the sort of the weird pseudo-haiku form it was sent in. Nice short hair. I wonder if it is short downstairs, too. So we went on a series of really terrible dates. This included I did not go on a date with that guy, I will say that. He did not get a response. I ended up going on a date with a 27-year-old man who said he loved 4chan and was an ardent beatard, which, if you don't know what this is, that's like going on a date with a restaurant critic and telling them your favorite food is mashed kitten. So, and it's pretty brutal. Don't Google it, just don't. I went on a date with a man who was so boring that when he went to the washroom, I forgot what he looked like. I swear to God. And I went on a date with a guy who 15 minutes in told me how awesome the breasts were on the woman across from us, and then told me I was too boring to continue seeing on a date. And then left. Yeah, I know, right? Total catch. Eventually, I, at one point, received an email from a young man. He had just moved here from England. And I thought, accent? That's great. Like, after a few months online dating, your standards are just like right down here. You're just like, you seem intelligent, let's go. You use commas. So he used commas properly and didn't ask what my pubic hair was like. And he had an accent, so we went on a date. And to give you how this first date went, we met at the corner of Queen and Yonge, and I told him, he had moved maybe about 2 months beforehand. I had said, all right, I'll show you around a bit of Toronto, because you haven't really seen much of it yet, because it was March. He'd moved here in January. Weather sucks. So we still got winter. And we started walking at Queen and Yonge, And by the time we hit Queen and Lansdowne, I was like, maybe we should get dinner at some point. So 6 hours later, we're still wandering around the city. I haven't really shown him much, but we have talked about basically everything. And at one point, I look at him and go, do you want to get a beer or something? And he goes, I don't really drink. And I'm like, okay, red flag, red flag, red flag. And so then he explains that it's not for any real reason. He just doesn't like it, which is totally acceptable. You don't have to like drinking. But then I was like, do you want to get a coffee? And he's like, I don't really drink coffee either. At this point, I'm a magazine editor, and I work in radio also. And like, really, my diet is like 80% booze and coffee. And then like, the rest is Chinese food and like distilled Spite. And normally these are things that would sort of freak me out. But I sort of go, all right. I've just walked with this guy for 6 hours. Like, the rest of the dates have lasted maybe at most 1. I'm going to keep going with this. And we keep seeing each other, and we keep going, and things get better. He eventually starts drinking beer, and I get him drinking coffee. I'm, like, slowly breaking him down and like showing vices to him. Like, I don't know. So we keep going, and we keep going, and we keep going. And about 8 to 9 months in, I'm in the car with my mom. I'm back home. We're driving along. And I don't know how we get to this, but she looks at me and she's like, have you guys ever like talked? I know she's like, I know this is like really early to like mention this, but have you guys ever thought about getting married? And like, to my mom, I just sort of go, well, you know, we get like shrugging and like 15-year-old boying it up, just like, whatever. Like, that stuff's for girls. Like, but in the back of my head, I was just like, yes. And that was the moment where I was like, I have never in my life thought about that thing. I've never thought that way about anyone. And I'm like 9 months into a relationship. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I'm not a big proponent of the whole marriage thing. And I have my reason, but whatever. And so we keep dating, and sometime around like June, July this year, we start talking about it. And it sort of comes up in conversation. First as a joke, because he is a British citizen, so he's like, how about that visa? Why don't sort of thing. But we start talking about it, and talking about it more, and talking about it more. And after about 2 weeks of discussion, we decide in sort of like the most anticlimactic way, let's get married. So we technically got engaged sometime around last month. I don't know the exact date. I'm really bad at this. I'm like really the worst wedding person ever. So not wearing white, not wearing strapless, not getting my hair done. I'm a wreck. And so I hit that point where I realized, let's do it. And people always talk about love as being sort of this like fire or flame or like spark that ignites in you. And for most relationships, I think it's just like you started with someone and you huck a log onto it and you're like, go. And there's really no work put into it. I mean, and fires don't work that way. They eventually go out and then set fire to your shoes. It's not good. But I think you hit a point with some people where you really want to keep stoking it and keep working on it. And sometimes you work on it and flame, sometimes it's great and it's warm and lovely, and sometimes, sparks shoot in your eyes, and sometimes your house burns down because they're a jerk. But I got to this point, and after 24 years of being like, fight the man, marriage sucks, I'm like, let's do it, let's get married. I got engaged last month. He's actually here. Hi, Andy, how's it going? It's cute. I will say this, though. There was an actual proposal. It happened like several weeks after we announced the engagement. His ring came in. I'd ordered it from somewhere in the States. And I told my roommate, because we live with a roommate because we're in Scrubs. And and in true Scrubs fashion, I got down on one knee, I asked him to be my wife, and our roommate ran around in the background with sparklers. And then he set the fire alarm off, and we just embraced and then shook towels in front of it. So, so basically, at some point, I mean, for years I was sort of just kind of going through relationships, just kind of trying to be the cold hard bitch. And at this point, I've decided, you know what? maybe it's time just to keep stoking this fire and just work on it. And that's it.